And I asked my cousin who died last year at, 90, whatever he was. I said, so what's the difference between the time when I was little and the time when you were younger? Then and now, what's the difference? He said, they pretend. They pretend.
The whites or the blacks or
The whites.
Blacks.
Yeah.
They pretend. Things are still the same. If
Sure.
you ain't walking in lockstep,
Yes.
they're gonna be in your ass, but they gonna be in your ass the same way. Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good dawn, good sunset, good everything. How y'all doing? Welcome to another stimulating episode of Older Black Men Conversations. I am one of your co-panelists, Brother David Harold Dudley III, aka Cool Breeze.
Ooh, Stimulating.
Hey,
Okay. Anyway, make up your own words once you're over. So
I do.
hi there. How's everyone doing? I'm the real Cliff Barnes. Just here. Yeah, as opposed to the one on Dallas.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Or the tugboat.
or the tugboat.
Yeah.
Or the barge. Anyway,
Professor.
welcome and
Thank you. Welcome. Luther Lyle. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever. Hello, we're here.
You rehearsed for a whole lot of something, and that's all you're gonna give them. Give the people what they want. They want
Got
you.
to give the people, give it up.
What they want.
And you're wasting time. Let's go. Move. Come on.
Okay, I am the street philosopher, Gary, for short, and we're here
because we're here.
because we're here.
To make you shout.
Thank God
Oh,
Almighty.
glory be to the one that knows what the funk's about. Hit me.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
We want to
Today is the anniversary
Anniversary.
of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.,
Wow.
who was assassinated on this day in 1968
1968.
in Memphis, Tennessee, aka Mississippi.
Memphis, Tennessee, at the Lorraine Motel.
Do you remember where you were at when that happened?
I was
When you got the news of it?
I was at school.
I was at school. That's all.
I was at school.
And
I
it was my
was-
senior year.
Yeah, mine too.
That means that was mine too.
I think, yep. But yeah, when Memphis is like what, 2 or 3 hours ahead.
2 hours.
2 hours ahead. So when it happened, it was 2 hours earlier here, so we were still in school. I mean, in class.
Yes.
Yeah, got you.
You know, and yeah, I remember they sent us all home early and, you know, got home and turned on the TV and it was chaos.
56 years ago today.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't actually go home. I was an outreach worker in training, and I worked out the old Collins playfield over at 14th and Yesler.
Yeah.
And they had sort of a council set up, and me and my co-workers were all black football players, and some black football players from Garfield all went over to there, and there were some young ladies there also, and we had an all-night session, and it snowed that night. We had an all-night session there, and we stayed up all night and talked about it, and that developed into a thing that the actual Seattle School District shipped us out or volunteered us out to schools in the outlying areas. We went and gave assemblies like on Mercer Island and Bellevue and Roosevelt and places like that to give them an understanding of what the legacy of Dr. King was. And that really irritates me now because you turn on the TV, right? And you see these beauty contests. And all of these young ladies come out, and I want to be a good human being, just like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. What the hell do you know about it? And that's the first thing that comes to my mind, because back in the day, the reason they sent us out to these various areas was because nobody liked Dr. King except us, and even some of us didn't like him. My parents thought he was a communist. He was crazy because he was, he was doing things different. So it kind of, as I think about it, it kind of gets me riled up because nobody really understood back in the day except really young people got it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
So it's interesting.
mostly who the followers were.
Yeah, and it seems to be the
that's-
young people.
I don't agree with that.
Originally, who did the sit-ins at the Walgreens and stuff? Those were college students. Then, it's not like they were the only ones, but they were at the forefront.
yeah, it was the young
Historically,
people.
we go back to 1955, just so happens to be on my birthday, 1955, the Montgomery bus boycott. It was this 26-year-old preacher from Atlanta that these old heads, these elder preachers, put out in the front of this demonstration, not a march. And so, what he was leading at that time, it wasn't a hashtag, it wasn't a sound bite, it wasn't a snippet like that. And under his leadership, he said, we're going to do this boycott, right? And it's going to include the community, not just young people. Young people came out.
Right.
But there were a lot of sacrifices made by folks with jobs who risked their jobs in order to walk and not use the buses, in order to carpool and work around. And it wasn't a weekend situation, it wasn't a hashtag situation, it wasn't a soundbite, it wasn't a short headline. This was over a year of committed community. The community was older folks, churches, everybody got involved to do that. And later on, as you mentioned about the SNCC and these other core organizations that use young people, especially college young people, to segregate the buses when they're driving down to the South, and also to infiltrate the South, so to speak, infiltrate in different communities in Alabama, Mississippi, whatnot, in order to do voter registration and whatnot. I believe it was important for them to do, and he needed them, because the persons that lived there at the time, who were being allowed access to vote and to register to vote, they were catching hell for standing in line to register to vote. They were the sacrifices that they were making, they were tremendous. And so these young people, they were kind of not expendable, but that was the group that they could use to help do that. Because if there had been folks in the South that went out and did that, they would have gotten hung, lynched, job gone, house burned down, church burnt, all other stuff. And it helped to bring more attention to it. So it was not just young people, it was older folks, but especially the churches, because they got behind it.
But the young people, their idea, they were more
Progressive.
Yeah.
They weren't afraid.
Progressive.
We didn't
Exactly.
give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while the older folks, our parents, did.
They
had the
they had to
jobs.
be convinced.
Right, they are the ones that had to be convinced. But the younger folks went out there and they're the ones getting fire hose and the dog set on. It was
Right.
young people. If you look at that stuff,
Dr.
there were
That's
a
true.
couple of
Dr.
older folks,
King
but
was
it's
a
mainly
young
young
person.
people.
I agree with that. I'm just saying that the older folks behind them, especially in the South,
But they
what they were risking if they had went out there. If you remember that book, Why We Can't Wait. In it is the letter from a Birmingham jail that Dr. King wrote, and he was writing to clergy who were various sort of Jewish folks, Catholic, whatever. They were asking him,
Right.
well, why are you involving these young people? And he was saying that if we involve the older folks, they're going to lose their jobs. The houses are going to get burned down. The people in the churches and stuff, just like today. Who are tithing members of churches? Older people, not the young folks. And so when that is gone and that is threatened, you got no movement. And so you needed that courage from these young folks. And that's when in that letter, that's what he was saying to the
But
folks.
was he not a young person himself?
He was
That's
26
correct.
years old, right?
That's
exactly.
in those days. Okay, 26 years old. That's about that far from college.
Those old heads pushed him out there in the league.
That's
Think about
okay.
it. They pushed him out there.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically, they all needed each other.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
But a lot of cases, in the early days, the young people were at the forefront. Because like you say, the older people pushed them out there. But they didn't have to be pushed, you know, as much as,
they
you know.
can-
Right,
connect the
it's,
dots
you know
and see
what,
what's
it's
going on.
especially, and I'm looking at, I come from the South, I come from the deep South, I come from a place where back in the day, when they played Roots on TV, they didn't have it, they just take it off. They had to take it off, because it caused too much crap. So that's the atmosphere I came from.
Right.
Okay, now my grandfather was he worked at a factory in Tennessee and drove back home to North Carolina, right? But he started a cab company. And once that cab company was started, he quit the job at the factory and he went and registered black voters in rural North Carolina. And he caught hell.
I'm sure he did.
He caught hell, but he kept doing it. And the folks that helped him to do that and push that, who weren't afraid, were the younger folks. It was the older folks, the folks his age that they had to convince to even support, even show support. I mean,
Do you
we're talking-
understand why they had reluctancy to be as supportive, the older folks, the older generation?
Sure.
Sure, I understand, because they were going to catch hell. And it wasn't about no damn job, because half of them didn't have a job.
Ooh, well, they had to have something in order to sustain their
They
families.
had an in,
They had-
whatever
they had
income
whatever
they had.
farm-
So if they had a farm and they're raising and they're you know,
Right, their own food and stuff. I mean,
Self-sufficient.
they did not survive from them white folks, is what I'm trying to say. They did not where I'm from, because they didn't do that. All they wanted to do was get in the nigga's ass. Seriously. I mean, even today, I can't say today, but a few years ago, within the last 5-10 years, when I was down there for a family reunion, it was still that way.
Pretty much.
It's still that way. And I asked my cousin who died last year at, 90, whatever he was, I said, so what's the difference between the time when I was little and the time when you were younger? Then and now, what's the difference? He said, they pretend. They pretend.
The whites or the blacks or
The whites.
blacks.
Yeah.
They pretend. Things are still the same. If
Sure.
you ain't walking in lockstep,
Yes.
they're gonna be in your ass, but they gonna be in your ass the same way. But now that, since the civil rights movement started to grow and move, they can't get to their ass as easy now. Because now there's a little bit of money behind it. And so now they gotta be a little bit more careful, because their children's children have grown up, and they've kind of changed things a little bit. Not all the way, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still pockets of the United States that practice as much of the segregated lifestyle as their ancestors, their forefathers, whatever. But the thing is, on the surface, they're following, oh yeah, this is what the government says we got to let these people in, they got to go to school, But their inner feelings remain the same.
I agree. Dr. King, I believe, would be, if he were still alive, in whatever state, hopefully if he was lucid and able to read and be able to decipher the things, he would be disappointed, for sure. He'd be disappointed in us in terms of not keeping our foot on the pedal, not still making those sacrifices to change the trajectory. Because as you said, Dave, that there's a lot of things that are the same. There's at the time that he was assassinated, he took time out to go to Memphis to support those sanitation workers. Actually, that's the second time he came back to Memphis to do that. He was in the process of putting together a poor people's campaign, which was to put focus on the government and how economically we were being shortchanged, and the differences between pay and wealth generation, that kind of thing. And that trajectory would have made a difference. And I believe, not that James Earl Ray was so sharp that he got that figured out. I believe he was probably paid by somebody. I mean, it wasn't that hard, and folks ain't that smart down there. To do that, to stop that trajectory, to stop that momentum. Because it's one thing, young folks are able to sit at the Woolworths in South Carolina or North Carolina, but it's something else to be able to have some money to buy what's on the menu, or to start your own business, or to get loans to modernize your farms, to really take part in this economic U.S. system here. And so when that was on display, when he was headed towards that, he said, "Oh hell no, we can't have that." And what we're seeing today is it's the same kind of backlash, only the results are the same, but the methods are different.
Exactly.
Correct.
And if
I
they
totally agree
write
with
the
that.
rules,
Hello.
if they write the rules,
Come on.
then when we apply for loans and it's the same segregationist attitude that we fought for these many decades.
Right.
It's actually worse.
You know, well,
It's way worse than, like you mentioned, service. On the surface, it's doesn't look as bad because the news doesn't want to show you too much. It's like breaking news, this car wreck, 4 people died, whatever. Then they get to the news. Well, this might be shocking. This might be disturbing. Well, hell, you pushed it with your breaking news story.
Right.
But there's been so much different disinformation that we have no control over. Like you mentioned, your parents thought Martin Luther King was a terrorist. That whole lie had been going on for years. J. Edgar Hoover, you know, but that's what keeps us confused, because where were they getting their information from? What choices did they have
and could make it up
to get their information?
If they control the media, they can get
Right.
anything they want. Now we have social media.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have so much disinformation, misinformation, wrong ass shit on the internet. Okay, so that's there again. Basically, it's all divisive.
Yeah.
If we were to all get together and realize, you know, what the hell is happening to all of us,
Yeah.
then that would ruin their overall plan.
Sure.
They've taken
They take that into account. You know.
Yeah.
they've taken it and marched way out ahead with the misinformation, the lies,
Exactly.
and keeping us
Divided, separated.
even the law. What the hell? That if you're standing in line to vote, somebody can't give you a frickin' water bottle? I mean, that's just crazy. Every little thing they can, they're pushing it, and they're good at pushing it, and that's why I say it's worse, because
When you mentioned about the different pockets, that's really important, because those pockets haven't changed.
That's
No.
right.
You know, we look, well, just the South.
That-
You look at those southern state legislatures, most recently in the state of Tennessee, those folks, you know, they put out those brothers,
Certainly.
you know, and they put them out. Let's go back. They put them out. They put them out because they were speaking up within days after a shooting that happened within 6 blocks of the state capitol. And these guys were ready to vote. Not the brothers. They that state legislature controlled by white conservative, you know, folks, whatnot.
Yeah.
They were ready to vote. I mean, they'd already had the discussion. They're cutting off any kind of further debate. They wanted to vote on, and they did, on lessening and expanding and making it more easy to obtain guns, magazine size or anything like that. And in the state of Tennessee, when I was there, what I learned was that law to, what do they call it, open carry,
Open carry, yeah.
you know, it led to the unintended, right? It's interesting when you say unintended. That's like, oh, we didn't know that was going to happen. They knew,
Yeah,
they didn't care.
Certainly.
The unintended consequence was that more cars were getting broken into because there's a 50-50 chance if you break into a car, you're going to find a gun. And that's what was happening. That was adding to the crime. They said, well, look at the crime there, look at the crime there, look at Chicago, look at Nashville, look at Memphis, whatnot. So most recently, well, I think it was happened last week, the state legislature dismissed, fired, got rid of all the Board of Regents of Tennessee State University.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
But it didn't address the fact that over the last 30 years that all the HBCUs have been underfunded. And there is a big mass of money that has not been distributed to these
Yep.
HBCUs.
Well,
It's still out there.
Why, I don't understand. I
I
wouldn't
understand
expect
either.
that. I wouldn't expect that to happen.
Wouldn't expect what?
For any money to be distributed to them. I mean,
It wasn't begged on, it was legislated and it was supposed to happen, and when it didn't happen, yeah.
but it's Tennessee.
You're disappointed but not surprised.
No, but it's Tennessee.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, there's other
Tennessee.
places.
It's right next to where I come from,
Mhm.
North Carolina,
Exactly.
And the
Tennessee.
whole
I
thing
mean,
is-
right.
There are governors who have said out loud that funding going to the HBAC takes away from the state colleges and universities.
No,
But
it
it's-
doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No, but they say that, and
I
people
know.
buy into that. That's what I'm saying. People buy
Texas,
Well,
in Texas,
sure.
yeah.
They'll say that, but I mean, the thing is, now there's using media and whatever to keep misinformation,
Yeah.
disinformation,
Yeah.
out and out goddamn lies in the forefront.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like basically an illusionist magician.
You know what's
Okay.
interesting is that they talk about the different information silos. Truth is like a silo.
Yes.
It's like, and nobody wants to go that way because it doesn't sensationalize like this
But yeah.
topic or that topic.
But the
Well, you
whole
can
thing
think of it
is,
as true.
You know what? Check it out.
Yeah, you're right.
On the real side,
You're right.
anything that goes on down there, if you don't get some folks of color in those offices, state and national, in those southern states,
they go out
Democrat
of
and
their way to
Republican,
prevent
all
it.
you're gonna get is a Dixiecrat.
They
They all gonna vote the same. They're gonna vote lockstep, whether a Democrat or Republican and white.
exactly.
That's how it is.
And they got methods to do that. Gerrymandering, man. I mean,
But you still have black people on media,
Yeah.
right? Spreading the same garbage that their co-workers are saying, that the conservatives, you know. And you know, when people go, well, look what they're doing to Trump. What? What the fuck did Trump do to y'all? Look what he did to us. But they're like, well, yeah, this is why they're going after, you know, and this criminal, alleged criminal,
Yeah.
is the forerunner for their party. With, I mean, just everybody that ran again. He didn't even show up for their debates and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff. You have people who are influenced by, oh yeah, it's a witch hunt. They're going after, you know, they're doing this because he's, you know, he did this. He didn't do it. Name one good thing that came out of the fucking Trump administration.
Well, nothing because, or the Republican Party, because their focus is not on getting anything done. Their focus is on Hunter Biden. Their focus is on the wall.
But it's all personal. It has nothing to do with any of us.
No,
it's
it doesn't.
all fucking personal.
But
And-
they will tell you, I don't like him. I know he's this or the other. No, I know he did that. I
Right.
know he's guilty, but I like him. You're not going to change their minds. You might get some on the side, some
You guys,
undecided.
but they're
not
all
gonna
sitting
get to the core.
but they're all sitting around going, well, I voted for Biden last time, but if in the election, if him and Trump, I'd vote for Trump this time.
You ever
What
watch
the hell kind of
Roland Martin? He had this one young brother. I felt sorry for the brother because I believed he believed with what he was saying, just like what you're saying. I've been a Democrat, but I see where they're not effective anymore. So I'm going Republican, but he couldn't explain why. He had to admit he didn't have a reason why, other than he was unhappy with something that happened in the Democratic Party. So
I mean, the whole thing is, when you have tens of millions of people thinking like that, and in some cases not thinking at all, then therein lies the problem.
There you go. There you go. I mean,
Okay?
what I mentioned earlier about hashtags, sound bites,
Mm-hmm.
headlines, sensationalism, that kind of source, if that's your source for information, that makes you susceptible, highly susceptible to misinformation. And when you go after college students, one of the things that I learned later that college is about, it is to teach you to critically think, is to do in-depth thinking on stuff. So here's something that sounds crazy, whatnot, but you're forced to read this book to go a little deeper.
And the problem is, it's so easy to manipulate you. I can make you be somebody totally different on TikTok, Patty Wag, give the dog a bone, or what. I can make you look like you, but be somebody totally different. That's how
But see,
it's good, but that's how evil it
there's
is.
so many, but that's all the distractions.
Yeah,
You know, you can't, if you go into a room, like, okay, a waiting room, right? Okay, you know, I had a doctor's appointment the other day, down waiting in the lab to get the, you know,
Whatever.
yeah, me too.
right. So there was 14 people in the waiting room. 12 of them
Yeah,
had their phone
yeah.
going at, you know, right? There was one other person who was older that was just kind of sitting there, and I had my phone like right there. I ain't shit, I got this thing. There ain't nothing that's so important that I gotta fucking be on this thing 24/7.
Yeah.
It's good for what it's good for, but all the extraneous bullshit, you know, and that's the diversion. It's like I was saying earlier, it's like a magician, an illusionist, doing all this over here, but
Kicking your ass and stealing your
watch
money.
this hand.
Yeah.
That's where the person that goes in the box and we open the box and we stuck swords and that person's gone. Well, you know, that's the illusion.
Yeah.
That person's really not gone. That person has just moved to a different place to give the illusion that they're gone.
It's interesting when you mentioned about the doctor's office and offices.
Please.
I wonder how many magazines are still at a doctor's office anymore?
I don't hardly see
There's
any.
none.
Huh?
There's none.
Yeah.
I was at the doctor's yesterday.
I haven't seen any in
There
forever.
is nothing on those tables. There was nothing. There's a TV sitting there on,
Right.
but there was no magazine.
And all the other people in there that would have been reading the magazines are on their goddamn phone.
Wasn't nobody else in there.
I'm on the phone because I have my books.
But I mean,
I keep my
in
books
a scenario where there's that many people.
I've seen a few, but they're like 2015, 2017. I don't see a lot, but they're not renewed.
I'm not touching that shit.
Yeah.
I'd bring my own goddamn book. I would bring a novel
I'm just saying.
and I would read. I'm not touching that shit because bunch of sick people in here, they be reading it.
That's interesting.
Maybe that's why they took them
So
out.
remember
Yeah.
there's two magazines. There was Ebony for sure when it was big, not the
Right.
junior size, and there was Life magazine, right?
Life.
And so if a black entertainer or
Yeah.
celebrity of some kind was on the cover of Ebony or going to be in Ebony or Life magazine, you open it up and they'd show their house and they'd show their the outside, the cars, and when they showed the inside, here's their living room, and it typically had a coffee table with the magazines on it.
Exactly.
But it's interesting that even today, when they doing articles or documentaries or pieces on entertainers or celebrities and whatnot, and they show their house, they show the cars, they show their house, the outside, the pool or whatnot, but they show their theater. You know, here's my big screen,
course.
but they never show. Here's my library.
Don't need a library.
Here's my book
All in
collections.
there. You know, it's just like libraries now are selling books, right? Okay, you know, they get an inventory, whatever, so they sell the books. Okay, so now they rent. Basically, the books they have for us to read, they rent in a lot of cases. So the rent is going up. So now they're getting rid of books. They're selling books. So it's like, okay,
They're selling links, man. So
You know,
you
well,
wanna
no,
go
that's
to-
what I'm
go to
saying.
the
That's-
public
that's-
library. You want to get this book,
but there's
bam,
still
download
there's
this.
still people that like a fucking hard copy book. I mean, just here's a book I can, you know,
Yeah.
and or you know, you
Why do
got
you think that is? That's a challenge
What?
to. Is it? I mean, it's a challenge to take the time to read. You have to block out everything else, and you have to read and get in depth. Me personally, I like reading biographies and history. I like biographies in terms of I'm gonna read about this person
Right.
and how they responded to particular phenomena in history, right? You know, Ida B. Wells,
But just-
Paul
just
Robeson,
to be-
whatnot.
just
And you
to
have to
be
read
reading.
it, not just to hear it from the news bite or something like that.
Or-
I
or-
can read it and get my own understanding from it.
or an audio book.
Yeah.
Or an audiobook.
If you're on a long trip,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? You put the story in. Okay, well that's fine for that because I can't read and drive. But if I'm just sitting around and I have something to read, even if it's just a magazine or a newspaper, there's a concept. But I read that, you know, and it's like, okay, I could have got that information. I could have got that same information off of this thing.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I like to read it.
Yeah.
You know, TMZ is fine, but I like to read it.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I signed up for audiobooks because then I could hear it, but if I can help answer your question, reading it physically, my eyes aren't good, and I have ADD, and it's not always easy to read it and comprehend it. I've found myself having to go back and read some shit three times
several times,
because I didn't
absolutely.
absorb it. But with the audiobooks, this is just me. I can hear it, and if I don't understand something, I can play it back. But I think
Sure.
I'm absorbing more by hearing it
Yeah.
than trying to read it, and then it's like, I'm still on page.
But you're still,
Can I jump in on that? I one of my favorite authors is Malcolm Gladwell, and not only is he a phenomenal writer, but he has a phenomenal speaking voice. So I find that even though I like to read hard copy books more than on the phone, I find that for my favorite author, the audiobooks are better because it helps me, as you say, listen and comprehend. If I'm going to read a book, the best place is for me to go to Barnes & Nobles and find a quiet corner. That's literally one of the best places for me to read. But that ain't always an option, or always,
Yeah, I actually I'm like Gary. My eyesight isn't the best, and I actually have a very hard time with hardcovers or even with magazines. But with my tablet
Right.
or even the phone,
Phone.
I can adjust
The size of the phone.
right,
Yeah,
and
exactly,
it's
yeah.
not hard on my eyes, and I can get
Right.
through it faster.
Right.
Oh, I'm not saying that audiobooks are wrong or whatever. I'm just saying
I'm not
That-
talking audiobooks.
there's many, or you know, but there's many
Yeah.
ways
Yeah.
to obtain information.
Right, and,
And-
it's not bad. You know what? I hear you saying about folks in the doctor's office, but you know, I go to the doctor's office and I have to be there or at the hospital for a good amount of time, and it's a lot better for me because it's right here. And it doesn't mean I'm reading. I could be playing games, or I could be communicating with somebody.
And that'd be one of my things I'd be thinking about when it's the narrative. People are always in their phone. Now I'm not saying that's not a real thing, but I think people have a preconceived like you're in your phone, that means you're doing something dumb. But there's a lot of things, business that happens in our phone, and I think a lot of times people just see your head down and they be like, well, you're just scrolling or whatever. But books,
that's a
audio
general
book,
thing.
you know,
I was reading.
The whole thing is,
emails, that's where I do all my emailing.
but the whole thing is, it's the obtaining the information, and that's the thing. No matter how you do it, you have to stay informed.
Yeah.
So you know, it doesn't matter if you do it on the phone, on the tablet, audio book, if you read it in a magazine, you read it in a newspaper, but you have to maintain some level of being informed.
And I guess that's my point. My point is just because they're in their phones and there's a group of them going to the office, doesn't mean they're not absorbing information or gathering information. They're not just sitting there going da 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 da. I mean, I think we categorize people like that unfairly.
I believe so too.
So
Yeah, because you don't know what exactly they're doing.
No,
on their phones.
but what I'm saying is, everybody was on their phone,
yeah,
but the reasons vary.
we don't
Obviously.
know why. But
You don't know why. What I'm saying is, when we was kids, that's all there was them shitty magazines.
Yeah.
Now people have, like you say, if I
Shitty-
know I'm
shitty
going to be
information,
there,
Yeah.
if I know I'm going to be there for a certain length of time, okay, sure, I'm on the phone. But there's a lot of people that are taking care of business on the phone. My thing is, it's just everywhere I go, everywhere you go, everyone is on the goddamn phone. And if you're sitting there, okay, you're in the doctor's office, boom, but when you're walking down the goddamn street, when you're crossing in the crosswalk and my light is green,
Yeah.
get the fuck off the phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get off my lawn, right?
Yeah. There's
Well,
nothing.
No, you kids get away from that Buick. Fuck it.
I
yeah,
say
but
if that's not too much different. I mean, you could look at, as you say, however people get information or whatever. I remember before the cell phones got hot again, I didn't get a phone until my first year out of school, and they still weren't that popular like that. But when I moved to DC was the first time I was really on public transportation, just kind of looking. And at that time, Sudoku was the thing. Everybody had their thing. Everybody head down. And so you look at people talking. Everybody's on their phone. Nobody's talking. Then people were doing Sudoku. Nobody was talking. Before that, everybody had a newspaper up. Nobody. So it's weird to me that it's the somebody had said this earlier. The process hasn't changed, but the motive, the method, is a little different, but it's still the same thing over. I think at some point, us as Americans just need to realize maybe we don't really like to talk to each other, and we find reasons to be doing something.
Evidently, but I'm just saying.
The problem I see with us, not us meaning black folks, not talking to each other, when we gather and absorb this method of communication, we miss out on solidifying our community. Because just because we're black, as I say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? So we have different, objectives about where we want to live, what we want to do, how we want to come together as community, what community means to us. But if this kind of solidifies us to being individuals, rugged individuals, I'm into my thing. I'm into my thing. Group mobility, I don't know. This brother named Ron Karinga, back in, I think it was about 69, something like that, and he came up with this concept of Kwanzaa, right? And those principles were, I believe, were to bring our community together with a culture, to remind us of how we got to where we are, what some of the same principles that we had before we were captured and enslaved and whatnot, and to bring us to community again. And what about the let's pull it. What about the principles of Kwanzaa? Are they still relevant to community? Cooperative economics, unity.
Sure. So yeah. But the thing is,
And what are we doing about it? I mean,
but
so how has that evolved from
Right.
from
but
then to
there's a
now?
whole lot of people that, black people, we don't celebrate Kwanzaa because, well, we don't understand it. I'm like, well, it's pretty much easy to understand. It's right there. But still in all, you have all these different ideas.
Mhm.
But community has been broken for a long time.
Yeah.
As far as that, because in most metropolitan area, big cities, people don't congregate like that unless they have to.
Yeah, they have to.
Like they had.
Right? And the whole thing is, there is no sense of community because back to the gentrification issue,
Come on.
So we don't have a sense of community. We barely still got a sense of family.
Yeah, barely, yeah.
Okay? I mean, you don't see many families except some of ours, and I mean directly. You don't see a whole lot of families that do things together. And not just mom, dad, and the kids, but I mean like, your mom, dad's siblings and kids, uncles and aunts and everything. That doesn't happen like it used to.
Like it used to, because
Yeah.
there is family,
But
but
still, sure.
the family that's there now is the crack generation family. Now, by blood, they're still family, but here,
Right.
that sense of community, is there a sense of community, I gotta get high, or I gotta get some more crack, or what is their sense of community?
But the whole thing is, people are, well, for one thing, afraid of each other. And that sense of fear has caused a lot of things to break apart and splinter. It's like you don't know your neighbors.
Yeah.
When we was little kids, in my case, when I was a little kid, I knew everybody on my block, this way, everybody on, basically the court, as far as my little leash let us go, our independence, the further I got away, the more people in the community and in the neighborhood I knew and we knew. And that's why people were not afraid to chastise the children in the neighborhood.
It's their duty.
It's like if I see your child doing something wrong, I'm going to speak on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm walking around, I'm like, I don't know these children. And it's not the children, I don't know these children's parents.
Right. Don't know their parents.
So you can't chastise kids like you used to, like when we was coming up, and then you hear stories where these people here would take your ass to your mom's and dad's house. They would take you by the hand and walk you down to the end of the block or wherever the hell they live from you, and knock on the door and explain the whole situation. Wasn't no debate. Wasn't no your side. You didn't have a fucking side.
See, and right now, I mean, I've just been listening the past few minutes, and see, I can hear where the break in all of that is. Like, I don't have the same mindset as what was going on back then. Cause for me, get your hand off my child.
Exactly.
Get your hand. Don't touch my. You can come snitch all you want to. Don't touch my child.
Exactly.
Cause it's gonna be a thing. But back then it was like, yeah, that's what we did. No, I don't fuck with it. And if it happened today, somebody gotta pay for that.
Like
so
I
it's
said,
I don't.
Right?
How you guys were raised that way, and I wasn't necessarily raised to think this, but that's just my natural thought is. First of all, and I mean, I'm thinking about my child, but like, I don't want anybody touching me. I don't care.
Right.
Like, don't touch me. So when you say, people look and they scared to say something to the kids or to the parents, I mean, I get it now. I mean, yeah, there are crazy people who I think take things too far, but I've also lived by this philosophy. You can't tell somebody how to react. You can't do that. Whatever you did, whether justified or not, their reaction, you can't control. So with that, I'll be like, you know what? Especially when it comes to physicality, keep your hands to yourself. Because it's dangerous out here. Now again, it wasn't as dangerous for y'all back then. Do I think it's a good give off like, oh, it's not so dangerous in the streets, but anybody could whoop you? That seems dangerous to me. But again, I'm a different mind frame. But I'm like, don't touch me, don't touch my child, because it's going to be a problem.
Well, the way we were raised would not work today because of the way society is. But, earlier I asked, when you guys ask us or say to us, you don't get me, do you get us just from this conversation we're had? Even it's totally different. You'll never know it. But do you get us when we are saying things and you're like, no, don't touch my child or whatever.
Right.
This was us, where it was expected of you, and you will hear, and when your mama gets home, you're going to get another
Wait
one.
till your father gets it.
But
Here's the thing. In those days and in the situations that I outlined, that was our neighborhood.
Yeah.
We all knew those old people and they all knew us. They knew each other, they knew our parents. So it was more a community slash family. Just, not nuclear family, but extended family. So when they saw you doing something, it was for your safety that they did it. And they didn't, and like you hear like, oh yeah, they beat, but no, it wasn't where they would beat your ass. They just take you by the hand and say, come on, and go over, because that's
My natural reaction, get your hand off me. I can walk, get your hand off me. I know we go into my house.
but you're fucking 6, 7, 8 years old.
And don't y'all think that's okay, maybe not, because y'all grew up in it. So that's a good question, actually. Y'all grew up in it.
What?
In my mind, that leaves, and this might be soft generation, that sounds like it could leave like mental issues with things. I'm thinking mental issues, just somebody grabbing me and the anxiety, and now, I'm breathing all heavy now thinking about it. I can't think about being a 6, 7-year-old, and I don't care, just adults, even if you were a bad or a rambunctious kid, whatever, adults snatching you up every time and always getting threatened to get beatings from all the people in the neighborhood, go out, get your switch. Woo, why do you think people these days are like, I don't discipline my kids like that because I used to have to go get switches.
Right.
That's trauma. That's just passed down.
But the thing is, it's not, as I say, the sense of community was more like an extended family. You didn't just snatch a child up. You would say, hey, stop doing that.
Yeah.
And they come back, hey, would you stop doing that? And then the third time it's like, okay, you are so-and-so's kid, let's go. And we go down and talk to your parents. Don't just snatch them up and grab them and stuff.
Like I said, I'm all for, where I'm going, I'm telling your mama. But
CJ, I think what
That too.
I appreciate what you're saying. I really, really do.
Sure.
I understand. However, I don't know if you fully appreciate. I know you understand. But I know you fully appreciate what Cliff is saying is the ghetto or the hood, place where we were forced to live. And when you lived there, you knew this person down the street. You knew when you moved in there, well, I know so and so when he moved in. I know so and so when they moved in. I know their family so and so. And so everybody, not everybody, but the majority of folks looked like you. And your parents knew them, and they knew you and whatnot. And so when you were down the street acting up or whatever, they said, well, I already know that that's not the way that this parent wants to raise that child. And they take it upon themselves. However, with the open housing and we have more options to live wherever, when we moved this place, it's a nicer home, yada, 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 but the neighborhood didn't come with us. And so this kind of a behavior, your neighbor, I don't know that neighbor over there.
I don't know that kid.
First of all, the neighbor don't look like me, so I'm getting some distance in the first place.
Whose kids are these?
So really, that's actually where the break comes,
Right.
is when that, because right, the mindset of somebody who wasn't even born at that time and growing up and looking and be like, who are these people? People just be touching me, so my mindset is, that's why, because
Exactly.
so I do get it, and I watched the movie, I get it.
My daughter, she was raised here in Seattle and went off to Howard and didn't come back, right? So I like them folks. Hey, I like this here. And so where she's at right now, there's a little small development, there's 2 little cul-de-sacs, right? And when I was there in October, about 3 weeks, I must have known there were less people that I didn't know that they interacted with. One guy in that cul-de-sac, guy across the street, and another one down there, but the rest of them they knew. And so there was a fight. There's one dude, he opened up his garage, had a big screen, and he was at the end of the cul-de-sac, and 4 or 5 neighbors, and we came up and whatnot. We sat there watching the movie, watching the fight, blah 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 blah. And they, I'm running up and down the street with my grandkids with them riding the bike. So they have she has an opportunity to experience that environment where folks knew each other.
Yes.
They had a Monday night football. I think it was the Giants and the Seahawks, right? So son-in-law, he was a Giant fan, man, he was a Seahawk fan. The neighbors came down. Same neighbors that showed the fight, and other neighbors over there. Whatnot, so it was different. Every now and then, it's possible.
That's the exception rather than
But
the
it's
rule.
impossible in an area like D.C. where you're going to be more black folks anyway.
Please.
Here, there's a good chance, real good chance, that ain't going to happen. Right? You go to a neighborhood or in outlying areas, there ain't going to be 5 or 6 other look like you can trust your kid going out there and the neighbor picking them up. Man, they're picking my kid up. I'm checking him.
It's like, it's like the central area.
Today,
60s, there was 70%. It was 70% black.
right?
Today, it's 15.
Yeah, you and 14 other blacks lived there.
That's what I'm telling you. But no, I mean, all the things, places we used to go, whatever, wherever, they got these big, 6, 7-story high rises and
Sun-rocking
everything,
buildings, yeah.
and nobody knows anybody. They all keep, it's like it's difficult to see people walk down the street and approach each other and everything else, but saying good morning to that person is attracting you because they're looking at each other, they're looking down, and then they go by, That's the kind of fear.
Yeah.
That's the kind of
And a lot of these people are not
Atmosphere.
indigenous Seattleites.
no.
They're
They're
techniques
people
that moved
from-
in, they have
Sure.
no idea. But CJ, you said something I do have to agree with, and this is, our system wasn't perfect, but it was designed to protect us because there was some psychological damage, but you didn't argue about it. Go get me a switch. That's the first one. That ain't no switch. What they're saying is go bring the tree back. and
Go
I'll
bring
have
a weapon of mass destruction that I can beat you with,
Right.
and then to go lay down.
This is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you.
But that was
Bullshit.
but that was psychological. I mean,
Well, yes.
my father finished 8th grade. My great aunt who raised me, she finished 6th grade. When she told me to go out there and get a switch, that was psychology 101
Right.
and 205.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, it's like, why am I doing this? But you don't argue, you know?
Right. Well, but the whole thing is, it's like there was different methods that we were raised in and around. But the whole thing is, as far as your personal experience, but I've seen a lot of, what would be today child cruelty.
Yeah.
But it wasn't directed at me, and it wasn't my family or my community. I've just seen
Yeah.
what would be today child abuse.
Yeah.
Well,
And
today-
that's
today's
a whole
standards.
nother thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with spanking your child. I don't
No.
necessarily disagree with that. But I definitely, as a grown up looking at stuff, looking at kids, it's hard for me to look at them and be like, okay, they did something bad, whooping, and if there's a psychological part to that, I'm like, oh, I feel like we're beating kids down when it's a double team like that, when it's a psychological and a physical thing, especially for children. Now, I am one of the first people to say children got to learn. That's the only way, they got to learn. But I think some of the tactics that, and I'm not just saying black parents, I think parents in general, some of the tactics, I just be like, I feel like you're doing too much. That's a child. And now you got adults that have whatever issues they have, that most of them will trace back to whatever happened in their childhood. And that makes me be like, man, some parents take it too far.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking about one of my siblings that was not all the way
We got
there,
about 7 minutes because I'm just getting a flash from the camera.
was always in trouble. Get the switch, get a shoe, get a belt, whatever. Under the bed whooping. I mean, I'm under the bed.
Couple track.
Now,
Yeah.
this sibling, the psychological part to it is they grew up, had their families, had their children, and sort of treated them the same way. Now it's gotten to the point to where there's a fourth generation from the sibling. And those beatings that they took back in the day, I can see reflected in the fourth generation because it's went down from generation to generation, psychologically and physically.
I'd like to put this historical note out there, is that, remember Dr. Al Black?
Yeah.
Took class, his Race Relations 365. That was the toughest seat I ever got in my life. Had to read 6 books. There's one of them I still got, I haven't read. It was tough. It was tough as hell. However, one of the things I learned from his class was the difference in the oppression that blacks who came over from Africa to the Caribbean and blacks who came over from Africa straight to North America. One was a physical beating in the Caribbean. They call it seasoning, time before they sent you up here. And then what we got here in the United States was a combination. It was physical and mental oppression. And when I think about the method of disciplining a child, we were familiar with, go out there and get your switch and whatnot. That's the mental, and you're going to get the physical. You're going to learn, because that's what they learned prior to them. That's what got them over. Prior to that, that's what got them over. My father, his grandfather, and whatnot. We have the ability to evolve to not have to do that, but yet gain the same objective, and that is to get in their minds. You can have a conversation. My daughter, if I sit down, when she was a little girl, if I sit down and just begin talking to her about what's going on. Man, just a ball and whatnot, man. I ain't got to raise no switch or nothing. So I'm connecting on a mental thing with her. And every now and then, yeah, I did. I tap that ass, man. You know, you got to do that. Before we go, I just wanted to ask, kind of, where are we now in terms of from when Martin Luther King passed away to now? Have we evolved? What have we gained? Where's the gain that we've done? I mean, is it 2 steps forward, 1 step back? Or
Very slight, very slight.
what can we hang our hat on that we've achieved from the time that he gave his life?
It's hard to say because economically we were doing better, but there's more of us now, so the percentages are bouncing up and down. But we're still, we're not as oppressed as we were. So,
What we got to do?
you know.
Couple minutes.
So we gained a little bit, but I don't see much
Yeah.
progress in what the original intent was.
Yeah, I agree. We've gained some. It's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
I can't see where we gain. I mean, we have more tools, we have the ability to make money, but in terms of, we're talking about community, I can't see where we gained. I can't see, I don't feel like, if I've gained, I should feel like it. Now, I have more stuff, but stuff is stuff. But in terms of
Yeah, but
psychologically, I can't see where we gained because we're out of time. But anyway, it's like,
I agree.
it's like what we said
Yeah.
before. We got a two-party system. It doesn't work. We need other avenues of. Long story short, I cannot see where we gained. Somebody tell me why I'm wrong.
And with that in mind, why don't y'all tell us what's wrong, or where we're wrong, or where we stand at, and we'll see you next time. Adios, amigos.
yes, remember, if you like us, tell your friends, tell your relatives, tell everybody, share, subscribe. But if you didn't like us, just keep it to yourself. I've been the real Cliff Barnes.
Luther Lyle, I challenge you to read, do some in-depth reading and discovery on your own. And don't forget to vote. I mean, our forefathers and parents, whatnot, sacrificed a lot for us to have the opportunity, to make choices, especially on the local level. Vote.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to the part of however you get your knowledge, continue to get it. But let me say this, one last thing is, don't stop at the first thing you read. Read it more than one time because of all the misinformation out of there. But don't take anybody's word for it. Look it up yourself.
Research,
Research.
Yeah.
research,
And peace.
Or not.
power.
Peace.